I am really strong in negotiations and diplomacy just because I was trained to negotiate in war zones.
Just because I can generate 10 pages of the document in 2 minutes, it doesn't mean I should.
And now I see a trend is actually more starts hiding the AI element.
They say, hey, we educated 6,000 kids.
Today we have very special episode for 2 reasons. First of all, we have 2 amazing guests. And second of all, we have 2 guests. So that's the first time that we have more than 1 passenger on board. Welcome, Katka and Anna. A pleasure to have you on board. Basically, now it's kind of intense times. 2 weeks before Swiss AI Weeks kick off. How does it feel? What's done and what's still missing?
It's kind of interesting because last year we helped to co-initiate the Swiss AI Weeks, and we kind of held quite important role, like with Zurich Hackathon and other things, but it's not that we ran everything. So we had a team. This year it really changed that our Kickstart team kind of is operationally engaged. And so we kind of try to ask a lot of questions to say, hey, is it really the impact that we want to see from last year to this year? So, it's kind of, it looks beautiful and romantic to plan it, but now when you're in the middle of it, I think things change. This is also kind of beautiful about it. I think one major thing is that I am so amazed to see how much traction there is around the country because people are truly hungry to collaborate together. So it's kind of hard to sometimes cut it, So yes, it's 2 weeks, but it is also like a marathon. So it's always kind of starting something and then hoping that there is a movement that kind of stays a little bit longer. But yeah, it's crazy times. It's crazy to come to work every day now. So I have to say.
All right. So Anna, how long does it take to prepare something like this?
You could say it's never enough time to prepare fully, but we started working on it pretty much like after we finished last year. So Swiss AI Weeks runs for 5 weeks. It starts on September 1st and it runs until the first week of October. Last year was the first year and it surpassed all our expectations because we had several times more the impact and volume than we have expected. And it was really like, wow, it was almost like this like snowball effect, the movement that we didn't expect ourselves. So when we were done, we said, okay, so, we have to take a good sleep, have a good weekend, and then the next day start thinking about it. So it truly takes about 12 months to produce it because it truly is a movement which involves multiple sectors from corporate to public to social to academia to citizens. And as we get closer, I would say the last 3-4 months have been quite intense.
Okay, so that's when the things really start rolling, right?
Yeah.
And the initiative is quite different from what we usually see. Quite often it's like targeted to some institution or a certain topic. But what you do is really nationwide, many events, like a collection of events and so on. Why did you come up with this idea?
I would say, you see, as you said, many initiatives and programs that you almost call, right? And we kind of said, hey, but we would like to more move it, kind of have it as a movement, that it should be driven by people who want to do things. And so, what was a little bit scary and it's exciting at the same time until to this day is that we give the framework to different groups. And we have to trust they make the best decision. So, we give them this beautiful booklet and we give them guidelines, but in the end of the day, it is really theirs. And so, yes, we have signature events, that are there, or flagship events, as we call it. But if you even look at the hackathons, we're going to have this year over 10 hackathons. I think it kind of shows you that movement or topic as AI means so many different things to so many people. And it's not that there's one right way. There's just so many different ways. We bring these people together and we kind of say, hey, it is not initiative, it is not cookie cutter program. It is a movement. Anybody can do anything as long as it creates the impact.
Maybe one thing to add there is I love to use the word experiment when it comes to AI and maybe to the Swiss AI Weeks, because if you think about everything about AI is new. And you have to come in with the mindset of experiment. You have to know that some things will work out, some things will not work out. You have to try, you have to prototype, and then you have to learn and you have to move on. So the spirit of experimentation that brings a lot of fun, that brings a lot of freedom, that brings a lot of, I would say, also very fast learnings.
Okay, so it feels a bit like a hackathon to organize a hackathon, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
You're the core people behind the Swiss AI Weeks, right? Yeah, you two and Jörg. And I would say it's quite small core team to organize such a complex series of events. And for me, it's also quite interesting is that when you look at this innovation landscape, and given all of our backgrounds, actually none of us in the car are currently like coming from Switzerland originally. Very interesting for me to get to know the backstory of the guests, like where you come from, what you did before.
So I think maybe one thing to clarify, I wish it was 3 people organizing this whole thing. I have to maybe bring it kind of a little bit that we have a much bigger team, behind it. So this is kind of, and those people work really hard to make that happen. What is really cool about it is as a concept, which it's, I thought in the beginning it's insane, honestly, but then it's working pretty well, is that we have multiple organizations who co-initiated this organization. So it's 3 teams working together, and one organization is Panther, which is techies. One is, Kickstart and Impact Hub Zurich, let's say. And then you have other organizations that are co-initiators like Apertus and others on the strategic level. So from the background, I grew up in Czech Republic or Czechoslovakia with close borders. Dream for me was becoming a sports person because it was the only way how to kind of exit the countries. I then studied in UK and Spain and ended up in Silicon Valley almost by accident and lived there many years. I worked on the White House initiatives extended for President Obama, being in charge of exchanges that happen with Silicon Valley, with the corporates, public, private, not only on the tech, but also on human rights, on sustainability. And so I kind of learned, hey, this is such a melting pot of topics that are important and what can kind of drive it. And then I helped to start multiple startups. So I helped to start around 8 startups, and then 2 of them exited. When I moved to Switzerland, I connected with Impact Hub. I love this network because I knew them from the US. They really welcomed me here. You said as we are foreigners, sometimes it's not easy to integrate. And I feel like hubs like Impact Hub is a huge importance to this in Switzerland. And then you kind of connected there with the different entrepreneurs. And this is kind of how it all started, almost by accident for me. I, joined Kickstart 11 years ago for 3 months. And 11 years later, I'm really proud to say that we became one of the biggest platforms, not only Europe and globally.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And let's jump to Anna.
Very interestingly, the beginning of my journey is very, very similar to Katka. So I grew up in Armenia, which also was part of the Soviet Union, even more behind the Iron Wall than Czechoslovakia, right? So to say. So I remember the only Western music that would come to us when we were kids was the Michael Jackson. So I knew the name of Michael Jackson and I knew Vanessa Paradis, and that was the extent of my Western pop music, right? So, and then I moved in my early 20s to the US because I won a scholarship and I moved there to do my master's. One of the big dreams that I had was to work for the United Nations in New York, which seemed to be quite a crazy and impossible dream. But this is a different conversation over drinks, the story, how I got to that. But I did get to the UN in New York. I would think about that I should be so incredibly happy and so fulfilled. And I felt like, oh my God, I wanted to come to some place where you make an impact. And I feel like I will make zero impact there. As we all know, it's a large bureaucratic organization. It moves very slowly. And especially when you sit in the headquarters, that's even slower. I went to another international organization, which was IATA, International Air Transport Association. I worked for them in Montreal for a few years. Also was quite a cool experience. I had standby tickets and I could travel for $100 from Montreal, fly to Paris. And then I moved to New York. So since 2010, I have been living in New York. And I made a complete pivot, and I switched to tech. I saw that through the technology, how you can make quite a lot of like impact on the business. I was part of the first e-commerce implementations when e-commerce was just starting out, and it would take you 2 years to put up an e-commerce site for, let's say, Nike or Levi's or Puma. Like if you now think about it, you put up an AI website and you plug in your payment providers and all the integrations in a week, and then you're ready to go. So I spent most of the career in New York, large corporate, smaller companies, startups, some startups that got acquired. One of the startups actually got acquired by Alibaba. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I moved to Switzerland. About 2 years ago, we connected with Katka at one of the Kickstart events. And I said, yeah, wow, this is so exciting. This is cool. This is like, so many startups. And I started helping out as one of the advisors and experts. And then long story short, we're here.
And as you do have like very diverse backgrounds, but also quite different in reality. So when you organize now Swiss AI Weeks and then Kickstart, basically like different projects, what are the things, let's say, that Anna, you can do that Katka can't, and vice versa?
I would say I am in our team really strong in negotiations and diplomacy, just because I was trained to negotiate in war zones. My strong side is not in some ways on the technical level. So I think this is where Jörg and Anna come definitely in play to see that. Because I think it's important anytime you build it that you have different personas. Because if you just build as a techie, something will happen. If you build it as someone who is just non-techie, this is also kind of a problem. So I think it's important to bring different people together.
One of the things that's super important when you are working in a team, and especially when you're working on something that becomes so close to your heart, right? That we're so involved and we're so passionate about Swiss AI Weeks right now. And then you start become very, very passionately attached to your ideas, to your things. So, taking ego out of the equation is incredibly important for any initiative to succeed, right? And that means being open to criticism. That means being open to feedback. That means being able to ask for help. That means being able to help each other. That's something that I've worked on myself for quite some time, because I always say, oh no, I will do it. But, not asking for help is like a big one. From my side, I understand tech and I understand business. So I understand how those two come together. And in my mind, I always think about value creation. How can we create the experiences that increase willingness to pay for our customers? In that comes a very important part of building strong relationships with people. So if you listen to them, if you ask them the right questions, if you show them you do care, and if you build a relationship, you could do anything.
Okay, so how much of it is kind of personal relationships? How much is it like really technical organizational work?
I think they're intertwined. Like, look at us, right? We met in a business context. We've had multiple, conversations, interactions. And then at some point, those business relationships become friendships, or like good, like business friendships. So I see a strong correlation between those two from my standpoint.
Yeah. And Katka, as you say, you're kind of doing the negotiations part, and I guess that's also securing sponsors, partnerships, which is like kind of a core thing to make an event like this happen. Does it, like, what are the main challenges kind of to overcome, especially when it's totally new initiative? And does it help that people know you from different contexts to actually, convince that this is a good idea? Or how do you approach it?
Wow, so this is really hard to answer because this could take 20 hours. What I can see it is that it's been important to come to this business with the traction that we've had, that, with Kickstart is 10 years helping clients in Switzerland or working with clients and startups and many others in the ecosystem. So I think this is kind of thing that you're part of the ecosystem, people take you seriously because things already happened or you had the traction. I think this is something that really helps. I think for me, when I'm the most excited is then there's a client who says, oh my God, we were so happy that you should work with another 3 or something. And these are the contacts. So it's not that always the cold calls or pushing just for yourself. But really kind of seeing that someone recommends you. I think this is one thing that's always nice. I have to say one thing that I was really nicely surprised, and I'm really proud to do this initiative in Switzerland, is that so many organizations last year, especially from private sector, said, hey, we really believe we want to support it. Even they knew they will not see a direct business link, but they just say, we really need to build this for Switzerland. And I have to say, this is really impressive. You will not see it always in other countries. And I think this is maybe why this is so cool to lead by example. And I really hope that others can also follow.
Anna, would you say there's certain points about Switzerland specifically, why it can work here and maybe not necessarily in some other places?
I think the fact that we have such high concentration of highly skilled and qualified engineers, right? We have the ETH, we have the EPFL, we have the incredible amount of innovation coming out of there. So that is huge. The fact that geographically Switzerland is positioned in a very, very convenient space of its proximity to other countries. The next one is the high amount of innovation, like innovation and in huge wide variety of the spaces. You look at the life sciences, you look at fintech, and you look at every region, they have their strengths. So our Glemanique is strong in the cybersecurity, deep tech. Geneva is strong in the healthcare. Zug and Zurich is strong with the fintech. So those are the strengths that Switzerland can play into. And the concentration of the multinationals. So where else the country of such a small size has a high concentration of the highly successful multinationals?
Actually, Switzerland is one of the countries that has one of the biggest diversities already existing.
Absolutely.
And when the joint goal comes, it actually kind of connects everything. What would you say on personal level? What would need to happen that you would say, okay, this year's Swiss AI Weeks was absolute success?
I think for me this year is that last year was a lot about tech community, so we support a lot of techies and the feedback, which I kind of like to also see, hey, not everything goes perfectly. How can we learn from it? What can we build? I'm really excited. And this year we have 2 new projects. So, and it's really close to my heart because I'm past teacher. So, and I help to also build one of the schools that we have kids and teachers that will be hacking together. And, and from our research, it was not about we build new program. It was about, hey, there's so many programs in Switzerland, but how can we help to scale it even further? It is, so last year, for example, we worked with Smartfeld, we work with other organizations, and they say, hey, we educated 6,000 kids. But the problem is when the kids come to class, the teachers, we're not on the same level of AI. So this is why we need to scale it also with the teachers on that knowledge. And so this year I'm excited to also have teachers and kids from private school and public school and, children of employees and just kind of hacking SDGs. If you ask me if you're sitting here by the end of the year and we educated those kids and the teachers and they were happy and they want to do more and they help to scale it, to me, that will be definitely a success.
Swiss AI Weeks works a bit, we're a glue between all of these different actors, between different pillars of the society. And one of the goals that we have is to bring the ecosystem together so that there are less silos, so there is more collaboration, so there is more knowledge sharing, so there is more cross-sectional or cross-industry projects, and so that the cantons work more with the citizens, with the corporates, and so on. And I think one of the big things that Swiss AI Weeks is facilitating is that glue and that connection. And if that happens at the end of the 5 weeks, I would say that was great.
AI is expanding to everywhere, and I think a couple of years ago, it was kind of still the core technology, usually dominated by certain big companies and very enthusiastic startups. But that has shifted. I mean, people who knew AI as kind of just the name now are looking into it. And I think it's entering many more domains. What trends are you seeing from applications, from people you talk to, both in terms of sponsors and future participants? Where can we expect AI to head towards?
I mean, I think we spoke about it earlier today with Anna, which is really funny because, when we work with someone, we have people who don't use AI or use it a little bit. or we have people who overuse AI. We feel like, that they use it almost for too much when you're getting so many generated messages and different things. And I think for us, it's kind of how can we, learn to a little bit figure out what is the best balance and also what is the combination. Because one of the things that I was a bit surprised was that last year, one of our biggest missions was to help to launch Apertus or, see it in practice. I mean, they did an amazing job and we said, okay, how can we support it? This is Swiss initiative, This year we are continuing it and it's really important. It is going to be hacked in every hackathon. But there was a little bit misunderstanding, that people kind of did not understand what Apertus was sometimes because they said, okay, it's under GPT and it's what we do and this is going to be replacement, it's going to be safe. And I'm just going to use Apertus and nothing else. And we were like, oh my God, this is such a wrong message. No. So I think this is a huge change. And before it was on, let's say, non-techie level, what is AI? Now I think people understand a little bit more what is AI, but what it can do for them, what it's safe and what it's also like when it makes sense. Because I feel like when any technology, when it kind of comes up, everyone feels like, okay, we have to use it for everything or nothing. And I'm like, no, the answer is probably somewhere in the middle.
And I guess it's technology that is still evolving very rapidly. So in a couple of weeks, it can change a lot.
Absolutely.
And then how about you?
Yeah, so I see several trends. I think one of the things lately that organizations going a lot less towards the large frontier models and more towards very specialized smaller LLMs. Just recently, EPFL already released an open source framework in the medical field, right? So anybody can build something within like the medical field. You will see some of the models are geared towards the manufacturing. So that's one of the shifts that I see. Before a few years ago, everybody would just go for the large frontier ones. Now you are choosing for variety of the reasons to go for a lot more industry focused smaller ones. The trend is going to be towards, okay, well, this is what's working, this is what's not working, and what is working, let's actually really deploy it and let's scale it, because only then you could really achieve the true productivity gains, you could achieve the true cost savings, and you could look into these numbers. And on the human side, I hope that we will see a bit more AI consciousness. Just because I can generate 10 pages of the document in 2 minutes, it doesn't mean I should. Because somebody on the receiving end should do something with that.
Well,
right?
then they summarize the document with AI back.
Exactly. And how much wasted time it is if somebody else is also using AI. So I call it like AI consciousness, right? I hope that. And lastly, a lot less fear from the peoples and from the general public, because a few years ago I would be like, oh my God, this is not for me, I don't want to touch this, show me how to use it. And now every person you ask have tried AI in some way or form.
I mean, it's kind of interesting when I talk to startups, for example, on like some advisory things. Before it was always highlighting that we are developing AI and whatever the product is, it's like AI. And now I see a trend is actually more starts hiding the AI element and focusing back on, let's say, the product itself and the use that the AI brings. And what you mentioned is refocusing on the problem that is being solved, and AI might be the method to do it instead of highlighting that it is the AI.
I think because technology is a tool, right? Like it's almost like having a car. You still need to figure out what is the point A, what is the B, and what is between. And I think this is something that so many people kind of say, okay, it was the easy way, because you can hide behind it, right? You cannot trick to say why I'm doing this, what is the purpose, what is the outcome, but I'm using this technology and this makes me cool. But now it doesn't make me that cool because everyone is doing that.
Sometimes, when you approach especially bigger organizations and say we organize hackathon, this is like, okay, it's hackathon. It's kind of just for fun. People play around, develop something, and then it goes nowhere. Would you challenge this?
I think it's, when you see the hackathons that we have, is that some of them are really testing things and learning. Others that have real problems. And the idea is to solve those problems. So I think, I'm really amazed that the corporates spend time, or actually public institutions, Swiss government to say, or United Nations to say, hey, this is the problem we want to solve. And so it is quite taken seriously to see that. So I would say there's hackathon and hackathon. The ones that we have is that there are real challenges with ideal impact. But why we are doing is that we can encourage people to learn from each other. I was surprised how many of them it created jobs last year. It created new friends. So it's, I would say you can speak about the technology, you can speak how you learn there, but there are so many side effects to it that it's kind of cool to see, honestly. And I just hope that we can see that.
What is kind of like to finish off, what's your message, let's say, to the audience? How and why should they participate or mentor or get involved with Swiss AI Weeks, and how can they actually do it?
So I would say why is we kind of say shape AI together. And so this is, I think, just speaks for itself, because we cannot do it alone and we should not do it alone. So, anybody is welcomed. So I think that's really important. And how it is that you can go to our website and go, and it can be that you can create your own event, you can go hacking, you can attend event, you can give workshops, whatever you feel passionate about. And we're starting in 2 weeks, and we have over 200 partners, over 200 events across the Switzerland. So there's no excuse.
Awesome. So I think if you want to have a nice adventure with potential, to continue on what you do, this is the way to try out if you haven't done the hackathon before.
Yeah. And you will be at our hackathon. You'll be at one of our experts. So, when we do the recap, then you will have also your angle of the story.
Thank you so much for joining.
Awesome. Thank you.
Pleasure
so
to have you.
This was a lot of fun.